Hello and welcome to the Oltorf Report presented by Luck Forever. Luck Forever is the official YouTube channel of comedian Brian Cook. It has two shows. One of them is the Riverside Chat, the interview show, and the other one is the Oltorf Report, which is the current events and news show which you are listening to right now. Welcome to our South by Southwest preview for 2026. Yes, technically I'm recording this on the first day, and it's going to be released today, but we got plenty of time to catch the rest of the next 8 days, 7 days of activities, and we will get into the changes from previous years from the geniuses who keep winning these elections in Austin. I'm so disappointed with our city leadership. But before we get to our South by Southwest preview for 2026, we are going to go back 30 years into the past, and I am going to, I guess technically it's a record review, but we're going to take a look back at a long-forgotten nu metal band from Detroit, Michigan called 20 Dead Flower Children. You know how you're watching YouTube and it's got the recommendations, underneath or the side, and if you like this, you might like this. One of those came up, and it was the 1997 album by 20 Dead Flower Children, nu metal band from Detroit, Michigan, and God bless America. I'm looking it up as we're talking here, but the name of the album, it was Candy, Toys, and Television, something like that. I'm typing here, but it was one of the recommendations, and I hadn't listened to this record in years. Here it is. Candy, Toy Guns, and Television. That is the name of the album by 20 Dead Flower Children. Right now, if you look at the screen, you're looking at the cover art to it. I was introduced to this album in the following year, 1998, when I went to NTC when I was at the Army at Fort Hood, but I went with a different unit. They were short on people, and me and I think 6 guys out of my platoon, we volunteered to do it because we got an extra pay that month, and I think we got like 2 4-day weekends when we got back. Like they gave us some goodies to go on this bullshit out in the desert. And while we were assigned to the other platoon, there was a dude in there who was another headbanger, like crazy wild music, and he had this CD. He found it in some record store somewhere and just took this is how it was before the internet. You kind of just looked at the cover art, maybe you'd heard a song on the radio, and you took a gamble on it. And a lot of times, it was about that. The typical CD back then was like the one good song on the radio, and then 10 songs of just absolute garbage, and you feel ripped off that you paid $16 for it. But every now and then you take a chance on something and it works out. And this was one of those, you live life and you pay attention. And my buddy I met in the other platoon had this CD, and when we had our big party when we got back to Fort Hood, we were jamming this, and I made a copy of it because this was in the days of, you put the CD in the CD player and you make a cassette of it and you duplicate it. We're doing this, I guess looking back on it, was kind of the tail end of that, because, hey, the iPhone and all that bullshit was right around the corner. So, these guys kind of hung in there till about 99, 2000 and disappeared and got jobs, and we never saw them again. And blah, blah, blah happens, and then I see this record on YouTube last week, and I've got the link down below. But what struck me about the album, it sounds just as good now as it does back then. Again, the album is Candy, Toy Guns, and Television by 20 Dead Flower Children. You're looking at the cover art, and it does not sound 1,000 years old from the 90s. It doesn't have kind of like the first 2 Linkin Park albums, and I guess the first 2 Coal Chamber albums, those kind of set the standard for that nu metal production of baggy pants, funky bass, graffiti logos, all that stuff back then. This was different in that era. But, these guys had a really good record, and they're not alone, and we had a really good record, and we kind of vanished. So I spent some time this week wondering, or reading around, what actually did happen to these weirdos. So Yeah, there's not much of a mystery or a conspiracy behind it. Is that their timeline was they met in 94. In 95, they're writing songs, playing shows locally in Michigan. 96, they get a record deal. More on that in a moment. 97, the record comes out. 98, they move out to LA. I think technically they moved to Huntington Beach or Long Beach, but Southern California. I guess they were trying to make the jump to the major labels. They didn't get signed, and like I said, they went back to Detroit and just kind of, I don't know, went to college, went to prison, whatever people do when their band breaks up. That's what they did. But they were so good. Like, on paper, mathematically, all things being equal, these guys should have been huge. They were so much better than a lot of the shit that was on the radio back then. Now, looking at you, Saliva. Looking at you, Drowning Pool. I mean, Drowning Pool's all right. That first album was all right. But this one was easily as good as that. Maybe a little better. And this was 2 years before the first Slipknot album. It was very much in that vein. They even had the useless DJ doing the wiggity scratching on it. Okay, that is the part of the album that does sound 1,000 years old. But they got overlooked back then, and from then to now, they're the video on YouTube with, you know, hardly any views and no one knows about it, and that's why I'm talking about it here on this show. But it was that record deal they signed, because they signed with a company called Overcore Records, who ended up being part of Real Life Productions, owned by Esham the Unholy, a rapper from Detroit. And then they had a distribution deal with TVT Records, who was a big label that could get you in the mall and stuff. But the album wasn't marketed right. I don't think they had the budget for it. They didn't have the connections to get it in the hands of all the tastemakers. This was, like, again, before downloading, before MP3s, before streaming. And I don't think it was in any stores outside of Michigan. If it was, like, Illinois, Wisconsin, that area of the country, like I said a moment ago, it was by chance I heard it through a guy I knew at Fort Hood. Otherwise, I would have never heard about this record. But Esham was a rapper, big influence on Eminem, ICP. He's just part of that Detroit stuff. He was a very good performer, very good rapper, horrible businessman. His record company filed for bankruptcy 3 times. They kept switching distributors all the time. They didn't know what to do with the bands, because they had 20 Dead Flower Children here, but they also signed another band from Detroit called the Workhorse Movement, who did make the jump to a major. They signed with Roadrunner. And they, you know, like a lot of bands, they had their moment in the sun, and they did the Ozfest or some bullshit, and, you know, then they broke up and became teachers or whatever you do when your band breaks up. But Workhorse Movement got lucky that they got the attention of Roadrunner. That didn't happen for 20 Dead Flower Children. It sucks they didn't get to, like, I don't want to say have the full career, because, you know, there's only one Metallica, there's only one Pantera. Very few people get to live that kind of Led Zeppelin life. But there's a lot of bands at the Napalm Death level, at the Clutch level, at the Sword level, where they're making a living. They don't have a job. They're not a manager at Walgreens and in the band. They're just in the band. And they didn't get the chance to do that, and it sucks. And you know, it's playing the what if game. I play the what if game musically frequently. What if Kurt Cobain had lived? What if Cliff Burton had lived? That kind of thing. And in this case, I don't think we're missing out on the next Deftones. It wasn't that serious, but I do think they could have had some more records of this caliber. So the link is below. Please check it out. 20 Dead Flower Children. That is your trip down memory lane here on the Oltorf Report, where we are now getting to the... Was that all the notes? Yeah, that was all the notes about 20 Dead Flower Children. So now we're getting to our South by Southwest preview. The big difference this year is the geniuses at City Hall. They bulldozed the convention center last summer. So it's a good idea to bulldoze the convention center and then book a giant fucking convention, right? Yeah, that's what they did. So there's no convention center for South by this year. So I will be checking it out over the weekend. Apparently, like, not the concerts, not Katy Perry and those people, but the conferences, the job fair, all that kind of the business stuff. as opposed to the movies and the music and the stuff at night. The stuff during the day, all the business meetings during the day, those aren't in the convention center this year, so they're spread out all over the hotels, all over downtown, and the South by website from the city says, oh, I hate this commie talk, but here we go. It's a decentralized South by this year, which means part of it could be in fucking Georgetown for all I know. It could be in the Domain. It could be in the river in San Marcos. It could be in prison in Huntsville. It's going to be a disaster. It's already a disaster, and it's the first day. But it's also going to be 7 days this year instead of 10 days. And they're starting on a Thursday, and it's going to end on a Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday next week. Because it used to be, it would be 10 days. It would start on a Friday and would go through 2 weekends. You know? It'd be Friday, Saturday, the 5 days during the week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, I counted it right. No, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days in a week. Anyway, you get the picture. And this one is just, it's going to make a U around the one weekend, which really seems like a dumb idea. Again, I'll find out tomorrow for sure. In the course of preparing for this episode today, I did look at what's coming to town musically. What's happening at South by this year. Oh, dear Jesus. Now, I also think I'm at the age where I'm not one of the cutting-edge, hip and cool tastemakers anymore. Maybe a little bit, but not like I used to be. And I'm not the age group for this stuff, so I am aware of this. But even then, it still looks really fucking bad. So I got 2 links down here for you. We've got the Austin Chronicle's musical selections, which I offer up as an example of, 1, identity politics on parade, but 2, like, they focus on everything except actually playing any instruments. It's always about their deprived background and their struggle and their this and their that and their genius lyrics and, oh, we got the best producer. And it's like, is anybody going to play a fucking guitar or a piano or the drums? I like how those words, piano, drums, and guitar, don't appear anywhere in this preview. So the link's down below. You judge for yourself. The other one is the Austin Monthly Preview, because this one's actually useful. It focuses on free events and a lot of actual local bands, and not just bands, that, the arts, let's say, a lot of that stuff. I have seen a little bit on my own that the comedy thing is officially kind of a mix bleeding into South by. There's going to be a place, 715 Red River. It's the Sip House. I think it's one of those, it's an empty abandoned building during the rest of the year, or unoccupied, not abandoned, but it's going to be open this week, and there's going to be comedy shows there every night. And Drew Nickens is going to be there. Friend of the show, Lindsay and Trey Campbell, will be there. Who are some of the other names I saw? That Alexa Azari. There's going to be some funny people there. So that's on Red River. That's like a block behind 6th Street. They're big shows in the park. They are doing Auditorium Shores again at Zilker Park. This is literally across the river from downtown. You take the bridge, you go over the water, and you go into the park. I've heard different things. I've heard there might be some free admission that day, but if you want the good spots up front, they are charging admission for that. And for the 2 big shows, Friday night, Christina Aguilera. Saturday night, Calvin Harris. And I think they're $65, but it might be worth sticking your head over in the door over there and seeing if actual showtime, they might just be letting people in. Because, yeah, that front area is reserved, but the back, it's a park. There's people back here walking their dog and throwing frisbees and shit. There's plenty of room. I saw Mastodon there years ago. I saw Foster the People out there. I saw some cool stuff out there, which is why I'm bringing it up here on the Oltorf Report on the South by Southwest preview. So, yeah, I think that's about all my comments on South by. It's like, I'll report back on the next episode next week. Hopefully it's before next week, but I'll report back of what they're doing with the meetings. I imagine if they're going to mix like the conferences and the music stuff in the same buildings, they're trying to do a PowerPoint presentation while some asshole DJs at 500 decibels. Yeah, it's going to be a disaster. So I'm going to see it for myself. This doesn't really have to do with the South by preview or listening to old records from the 90s. I just want to say this in general. I made a note here in my show prep, and it's worth bringing it up in the closing moments of the latest episode, but turning off the comments, specifically on Twitter. And I'll never call it X. I'll call it X Twitter because it used to be Twitter, but it's still fucking Twitter. And I think turning off the comments or blocking the comments, blocking the people I get, because sitting there arguing on Twitter is the biggest waste of time ever. But like the thing where only it's that warning box you get, only select people can comment on this post, that kind of thing. That's just the height of fucking cowardice. The comments should be open for everybody. If you can't handle the heat, this ain't for you. Just like on this. So down below where all those links are the comments for the Luck Forever YouTube page and this video of the Oltorf Report. Let me know what you think, because my comments are always open because I believe in free speech. And finally, okay, I lied. We are going to circle back to South by, because I read a story about the Beach Boys, and it brought up Charles Manson, and it made me think of South by Southwest 2026 here in downtown Austin. Basically, Charles Manson, before the Spawn Ranch and before the killings and before all the Ooga Booga stuff, he was a wannabe musician. We got a lot of those in Austin. We got a lot of wannabe everythings here. And he was one of those guys, and I've seen this past, present, future, that he kind of just shows up at these parties unannounced, and, you know, he charms some of the people, a lot of the people, maybe even most of the people, but there's always some of them that see through his bullshit to the con artist he is. And specifically back in these Laurel Canyon days in the 60s, like, Charles Manson has a history with the Beach Boys. They played one of his songs or recorded it, and he was really trying to weasel his way into the band. And Dennis Wilson thought he was the kookiest, mystical, fabulous, whatever. And yeah, Brian Wilson thought he was all right. Dennis Wilson thought he was the best. Mike Love saw right through that shit. So when they were all like, hey, he's the greatest, he's so spiritual, it's like, yeah, get this guy the hell out of here before he tries to go on tour with us, which was the right move. And another person who did the same thing with the same person was Frank Zappa. Charles Manson showed up at a couple of his parties unannounced to try to just walk in the front door and act like he belonged there, and Zappa saw him, and Zappa and his wife are both like, no, you gotta get the hell out of here. You are uninvited and unwelcome. And then he killed everyone, and then he went to prison for life. So it crossed my mind, especially in the Austin comedy scene here, where we do have a lot of heavy hitters that live here, and we do have famous people coming in and out all the time. Let's keep it real for the Joe Rogan experience. That are there people in Austin who are trying to worm their way into the corridors of fame and fortune and power and success and leech off other people and reflect in their glory, and then when they don't get it, they're going to whack everyone in the house? Is that happening in Austin right now? Almost certainly. I don't know any specific cases. You know, kind of like how Mike Love felt about Charles Manson. There's a couple of people in mind, I could see them potentially doing it in the future. I don't know if anyone's actively in danger now, but it would not surprise me if the next Charles Manson is in Austin for South by Southwest 2026, and he is trying to get into the Fader Fort for free or something like that. And so before he gets you, before the Lady Bird Lake gets you, before the communists get you, before anyone gets you, I want to say thank you for listening to the Oltorf Report today. Please check out 20 Dead Flower Children. Please check out the South by Southwest, all the stuff downtown. I've got the links below. And final note, on the 21st, next Saturday, I'll be talking about this since I will be at the spot in Pflugerville, Texas, where we're doing the High Tonight South by Southwest Showcase. But that is next Saturday, not this Saturday. Anyway, thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with T-Bird Sanchez and talking about Lenny Dykstra. Talk to you later.